All right, so we are recording. Hi, I'm Jenna Aqua. I am Executive Director of the History Project. We are Boston's LGBTQ Community Archives. And I'm so pleased to have you all here tonight at tonight's Out of the Archives presentation. For those of you who don't know the History Project, we are Boston's LGBTQ Community Archives. We are a 501c3, and we are, basically it's our 40th year, and we're dedicated to documenting, preserving, and sharing Boston's LGBTQ history. We're here most Thursday nights doing Out of the Archives, so if you like tonight's talk, you want to learn more about the community, please come back. We'd love to have you again. I have two short plugs before we start the presentation. The first is that while we are social distanced still, and most of us are working from home still, I think, the History Project launched something called #QueerArchivesAtHome. And this is a project where we're crowdsourcing images, photos, videos, and stories from people within our community to create a space so that we can share and experience each other's stories together during this time. I'll put a link in the chat. Please do me a favor and look through your boxes and your bags and your closets and add your story to our history. My other plug is to ask you for your support. As a community archives, we are funded by the community. Any donation to the History Project directly supports our mission to document, preserve, and share LGBTQ history. If you're interested in donating, gifts of any size help us enormously. Recurring donations especially so, because they give us the security to take long-term steps toward a sustainable future for the archives. And I'll put links to our website right there in the chat. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Chris Ricciotti, who is founder of Lavender Country and Folk Dancers and quote-unquote Queen Mom. Chris brought his love of dancing to Boston in 1989 when he founded Lavender Country and Folk Dancers. He's spoken and written many times about the group's history, community evolution, and larger, longer history of same-sex dancing. He remains highly involved and is a popular dance caller around New England. He's known for his kind grace at the mic, where he eases newcomers into the traditions of both modern and centuries-old community town hall dances. Seemingly tireless, Chris also launched 2 annual dance camps, as well as helps form additional clubs on both coasts. So Chris, I'm turning it over to you. Do you want me to show the video first, or do you want me to?
In just a moment, I'll
okay.
start the, can everybody see the presentation okay? For
so I unshared it, just to start. But do you want to reshare it, or would you like me to pull up the video first?
Let me reshare. Hang on a second. Okay, let's see. Share screen. Here we go. All right. Now let me get from the beginning here. There we go. All righty, everybody. Hi. First of all, I want to also thank everybody who's joined us at the meeting tonight. There are a panel of folks who've been longtime members of our community. Michael Ciccone, Reed Weaver, David Downs, Bob Peterson, Dee Michelle, Robin Fox may be joining us. Am I missing anybody? Or
me, Ken Madsen.
Oh, Ken. Hi, Ken. How are you?
Good.
Good to have you join us. Thank you. So I want to start off by saying, you know, founders have this thing that goes on where no matter what you do, kind of like an actor or an actress, once they kind of get set into a role, you're kind of there for life. And I really enjoy my role in what I've been doing, and I love what I've been able to share with people through music and dance. I never, ever imagined in my life it would ever get to be where it is now, and it's still growing in its own way. But I want to be clear that this really is not all about me. It really is all about the people who, over the years, have made our community a part of their life. And I want to acknowledge that and honor everybody who's been a part of this history, whether it be just yesterday or, you know, 30 years or some odd years ago. And I appreciate personally what everyone has brought to this community, because to me, it's a heartfelt sharing of people coming together. I created something that all of you have put into this community to help make it what it is. So even though it's something that's very passionate for me, I really need to acknowledge all the work that everyone else has been putting into this over the many years, and just want to send my love out to all of you, and thank you for being a part of this with us for tonight. So we have a video that was made in, well, it was filmed in 2014, was put together a few years later. And we want to show this to you. It is a short documentary about our community. There are a couple of things that have changed since the filming of this. We're no longer using armbands and bear arms. We changed to locks and ravens, now changing it to locks and robins. So I just want to make that clear. But on the screen right now is where you will find a link to that video. You can either click on my picture, or at the bottom you can see the URL address, and you can just find it there and look at it. It's actually a really neat film, and Joan is going to share that with us right now. And then after that, we'll get on with the presentation.
Right. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Early on in my coming out process, I at one point had thought, what about the idea of gay people, contra dancing, square dancing? Wow, wouldn't that be amazing? And I thought, nah, never happened. Little did I know. Dancing is not a static thing any more than our language, the way we dress, the way we act toward one another. In order for dancing to be relevant, it does change.
All contra dances start with a basic, usually 20 to 30 minute introductory lesson. You can be a beginner and attend a contra dance, learn the figures, join in and become a part of the community really quickly.
Contra dancing is a form of social dance where you and a partner together interact with another couple, go through a series of prescribed figures, and then move on to another couple and do the same thing over and over and over. You're lined up in long lines.
That encourages the feeling that we're all dancing with each other.
I actually have joked that for me, contra dancing is like a series of 30-second love affairs.
I relate to you very closely for a moment, and then I get to go to somebody else before I run out of my ability to relate for any length of time.
When the whole hall is working together, you feel it. And as a caller on stage, I feel it, and the dancers certainly feel it. The hall breathing together. Gender-free contra dancing is contra dancing where they don't call the two roles lady and gent, but they use other terms. The most common one is to use band for people who are wearing bands, and bears for people whose arms are bare.
If you're gay, if you're straight, if you're lesbian, if you're bi, if you're trans, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, whatever, you are welcome in our community.
This came from a felt need. This was built and grown out of, we want to be together within our community and contra dance.
Everyone that comes here, I hope, feels really comfortable being exactly who they are when they're here. And I know that they can't, in many ways, in their regular life. So to couple that with total acceptance from everyone around you, what a powerful punch that you can take with you.
It's our own little world for a while.
You walk in and you know what their mission statement is. It's put on by this community, for our community, but we welcome anybody who comes.
I get to walk down the path in that culture. I get to go down to the lake and sit by the lake in that culture. I get to go back to the dorm.
Is anybody getting this audio?
Meal in that culture. Yes. So it's a bigger world of that subculture.
If I've helped somebody who's struggling with
But I take it we're not getting the video from Chris.
Helping them to a place where they can just have fun being themselves, then I feel like I've made a contribution.
You can hear it?
You could be any level and have fun at that dance camp.
We always have live music, and I get great inspiration from that. What I find is when the music and the dance goes into flow, that this could be my favorite form of meditation.
You get into the flow, and once everyone's got it, it's just wonderful.
I feel like contra dancing is, you know, part antidepressant and part community and part physical activity.
What makes coming into gender-free dancing so comfortable for me has been that comfort with dancing with the whole community. Without gendered labels in the dancing, we're all dancing with each other.
There are folks, particularly men, who are still not comfortable dancing with men. For some of them, they've just never thought about it. They're not comfortable. What does this mean? You know, really, it doesn't mean anything. It just means you're dancing with someone. It means you're extending yourself to another person.
Regardless of what my romantic history is or like who I'm with now, I want to leave the lid off of the definition of who I am.
I certainly see myself dancing for a while, and so if need be, I hope to bring more people to the dances, because I'd like to keep them going.
You know, it's amazing. I work at a gay-friendly church where we welcome everyone, and I go to the gay contra dance. I don't know, I think the world has changed in a way, but I think it's good that we still have our community as well.
There's less a pressing need maybe for this sort of thing, but it's still pretty nifty. And it's a lovely community, and that, I think, carries a lot of it just on its own.
As I've gotten older and I've watched our community change and I've kind of seen where people are going, I feel it has multiple purposes. It still has the ability of helping people to just kind of stop for a while, come to a different place, connect with the best part of themselves, and to help share that joy with each other in a room where you can have wonderful movement, great music, a lot of smiles, great conversations, and the chance to form friendships that are long-lasting.
Thank you, Joan. Now, do I need to reshare my screen?
Yep, reshare your screen. And to anyone who had any technical difficulties with the video, I'm putting the link in the chat. Sometimes Zoom likes to play nicely, and sometimes Zoom gets very strange about videos, and it seems to be a connection by connection basis. But it's there. Thank you, Chris.
Sure, no problem. Can everybody see can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to get started. I mean, although the primary focus of our meeting here today is to discuss and to talk about and to learn a bit more about the Lavender country and folk dancers, there are a number of groups that I feel it's really worth mentioning because they had a direct and indirect influence on our community over time. And let's see, here we go. And so I wanted to start off with somebody who was really important in a number of ways, named Carl Wittman. And Michael, I'm going to have you take this over. Sure. Because
Carl was a pioneer in the 70s and 80s in making traditional folk dance of various sorts more inclusive and not so gender-based. Carl's work predated the creation of LCFD and Chris's work in New England, but influenced it and eventually to some extent converged with it. Carl was a political activist, you can see in some of these images, in the 60s, and a well-known gay rights activist in the 70s and 80s. You should read the Gay Manifesto. It's available through Wikipedia. He lived in San Francisco in the late 60s and early 70s, where he became a certified teacher of Scottish country dancing, which is a dance form that has much in common historically and formally with contra dancing. At first, he taught with the usual gender role terminology, but upon moving to Wolf Creek, Oregon in the early 70s and starting to teach Scottish and English country dancing, another related form, in the community, which included both gay and non-gay people, he began to devise ways to change the teaching language and other aspects of the dance to be more inclusive and less gender-based. His work spread around Oregon, and eventually a number of weekly dances formed in Oregon that used his teaching methods. These became the Heather and Rose Dance Organization. Then in 1980, Carl moved to Durham, North Carolina with his partner, Allan Troxler, and they began another, there's the Heather and Rose. These are the Oregon dancers. That's a beautiful quote from Carl. They started another dance in Durham where they lived called the Sun Assembly. There's Allan, Allan in the middle there. Oh, at the whole top row. Carl died in 1986, and at the time he and Allan were working on a book of 100 English and Scottish country dancers with, which included teaching language, teaching instructions that were not gender-based. And at the time, this was very unusual and very kind of groundbreaking. Unfortunately, the book was never published during Carl's lifetime, and it's still being, I believe Allan's still working on it. Anyway, Carl's work intersected with LCFD mainly in the fact that Rob Dobson, who is here tonight, and I started a regular, and we both danced with Carl in 1980 in Oregon. So in 1995, we started an English country dance in Jamaica Plain on Tuesday nights that was taught gender neutral and became sort of part of the LCFD family of dances. So that's a bit about Carl, and you can look him up on Wikipedia and learn even more.
Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your perspective on this. You know, I never met Carl. In fact, what was really interesting is I started teaching in the gay community right about the time that Carl passed away. But his story and my story in some ways are very similar, because Carl's development of gender-free dance terminology is something that came about because of their community's need to make it more relevant to them and make it more accessible to them. When I started calling, I was so used to gents and ladies, I didn't even think that there were, you know, any other opportunities or even any other thoughts. Carl did a lot of dancing in the Bay Area and was an instructor. And at one point he brought his, a male partner with him to one of the dances, which was really not looked on very positively. And he was asked not to. So a part of his wanting to change and do something different came from understanding that dancing can be something a lot bigger. And it can be a lot more inclusive than what has been available to a lot of us who don't necessarily fall on the normal continuum, if you will. In our community, I started this because I was a gay man and I loved dancing since I was a kid. And I suddenly realized soon after coming out that it was possible to merge these two worlds together. But for quite some time, I had to keep them very separate. So many of my straight dance friends had no idea that I was doing this behind the scenes, and vice versa. And eventually over time that changed. But in our own community, we developed a language for gender terminology because it was really important for us to make this kind of dancing relevant and accessible to us, and in a way that we could actually claim it for ourselves. Another group that was in the Boston area, starting around 1977, was the Lesbian and Gay folk dancers. And Dee, I'm going to have you take this one.
Except I'm going to jump in because it intersects both Carl and that. I moved to Boston in '81, but I had read the Gay Manifesto in high school, and it was a huge, big deal for me. It changed my life. And I moved to Boston and got involved with this lesbian gay folk dancing group, and people kept talking about Carl and Carl Wittman, and it was several years before I put it together that it was the same person. So read the Gay Manifesto as gay history and as stuff on early gay liberation. It's an amazing document.
So Dee, are you still here?
Dee needs to unmute.
Hey Dee, are you on mute by chance?
Not anymore.
There you go.
So Howard Perry, well, I guess I should explain a little bit about what international folk dancing is as opposed to English and Contra. International folk dancing is a phenomenon of where people take appropriate dances from all different cultures, mostly Europe, but not entirely. And Boston was a real stronghold of international folk dancing, centered mostly around MIT. And in 1977, Howard Perry, who danced a lot at MIT, which was a very straight environment, put an ad in the Gay Community News, and I saw it, and we got together and brainstormed about how we could have a gay version of international folk dancing. And at first we met in 1977 in July at the Gay Men's Center in Kenmore Square. And then a little bit later, we moved down to a bar downtown called Somewhere. But for most of our history, we were in the third place, which was Phillips Brooks' house at Harvard. Eric Christensen, who was a grad student at Harvard at the time, please move this window. You're talking to me, Reed? Move the camera up. Eric was a grad student at Harvard, and he got us access to a nice dance place in the third floor of Phillips Brooks' house. So the upper left picture is of Phillips Brooks' house there. We also, so many of us bonded in this group. We became great friends. We're still together a lot. Back one, please. And we took a field trip to Sunapee, New Hampshire, which the bottom left picture was taken from. The other ones are pictures from Philip Brooks' house with a lot of people doing different kinds of dancing. I guess that's more than enough, I guess, since we did a little contra dancing. Oh, and then, yeah, we did some contra dancing, and then people wanted to have a whole contra dance. And so in 1980 and 81, we organized 2 of those. And I asked Cindy Green she could lead them, the dances, because she was a well-known caller who I had known through lesbian and gay circles. It turned out later she wasn't out. She told me that she hadn't been out to the dance community, but she sort of appreciated my invitation as a nudge to come farther out. I didn't think of it that way because I didn't know she wasn't out. But anyway, so I designed the flyer on the left, and Judy Gatlin did the nicer one on the right.
Sorry.
Oh, that's it.
Is everybody seeing this? Is everybody seeing this thing that keeps popping up that says, please move this window away from the shared application, or am I just seeing it?
No, it's everyone. I'm seeing it too, yeah.
Yeah, it's there for everybody.
Comes and goes.
How do we, Joan, do you know how we can get rid of that?
I'm not sure why that's popping up. Do you want me to share the presentation from my computer? Would that maybe do it? Okay.
All right.
So
I'll stop my share.
All right.
Ooh, now I get to see
While we're
it.
doing that, I'll mention that that I joined the folk dance group when I moved to Boston in '81, and it didn't go on for a lot longer than that. But we did do a couple of, I remember 2 times that we as a group, a smallish group, went to straight contra dances and did zaps at them with mixed response, not entirely positive. So just mentioning sort of activist aspect of it as well as the more important community part.
Yeah, a bunch of us also went to Sunday night dancing at MIT, and that was the first time I danced with another guy. I was really afraid that people were going to react negatively, and people didn't seem to care much. In fact, some of the straight guys, when it was a sharing dance where you mixed with a mixer, where you dance with lots of different other partners, some guy said to me, "Oh, I like it. I can push you and swing you really hard." I figured I wasn't as frail as some of the women he was dancing with.
That's true. We used to call it gender liberating dances. We would go out to straight dances and gender liberate them. This is Peter talking. Actually, while I'm talking, just one really quick thing to throw in, which is that the very first time that I walked into a room full of GLBT people, and the Q didn't come along till later, right after I came out, and only one person in the world know that who I talked about coming out was Michael Zacconi. He invited me to come to the dance. So I climbed those steps up to the top floor of Phillips Brooks' house and walked into the room. And it was such a difficult thing to actually do that, walk into a room and say, okay, you know, I'm here, I'm queer. And it was just, there could not have been a more wonderful way to come out than to walk into that group of gay and lesbian folk dancers at Phillips Brooks House. It was just such a welcoming group of people, and it was just like, oh, these are my kind of people. And so just to comment on that, and I'm sure there were other people who had that experience coming to that group around that time. It was 1979 when I did that.
Thank you, Peter.
All right,
So,
we look good?
Yep, look good.
All right, thank you.
So this next slide here is Lesbian, Gay, and Dance. And it was a very interesting community, very likely the first ongoing lesbian and gay dance series in the United States, as far as I know, that was devoted to contra dancing. They developed a style of terminology where there was no reference made to gender, not even by role identification. Their comments were, we just want to be completely free of any restrictions that our society places on gender. At first, their contra dances were pretty much just symmetrical figures. And eventually, as people like Carol Amond and a few other callers became involved, they wanted to start putting in more of what was going on in the conventional community. And so they came up with ways of being able to keep that structure within that community, but also introduce more complex figures. Carol Amond really helped bridge the success of that and also helped other callers to do the same. Later on in the process, before the group folded, for their improper dances, their idea was, you don't cross over. We're not even going to tell you that there's any role involved in this. You just
Chris,
dance.
I think the non-contra dancers have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. So thank you, Dee.
It may not matter, but maybe you don't really need to go into this much detail.
Well,
It's 8:30, just want to point that out.
Yep. So basically, their idea was, you dance it from where you are. We don't care about your role. Ladies' chain would have been a right-hand chain. Swing your neighbors would have been swing and change to trade places. The limitations of this convention over time became frustrating for people who wanted to continue growing in their dancing. And unfortunately, this style didn't lend itself very easily to that. So eventually, and sadly, it closed. Okay, next. So this is the first group that I started. I became aware of the possibility of actually doing this when I was in a gay men's singing group in Providence. And somebody had mentioned the idea of, well, we went to a gay rodeo, which to me at that time was, I couldn't even imagine something like that happening. And I said, wow, a gay rodeo. And they said, yeah. And then after that, we went to a square dance. And as soon as they said that, I just flipped my head around. And I said, do you mean a gay square dance? And they said, oh yeah, they've been doing it out there for years. As soon as I heard that, I knew that these two worlds of mine, love of dance and also being a gay man, needed to somehow come together. And so from that, eventually, I started a dance series in Providence. It started in March of 1987. We started at the First Congregational Church in Providence. And actually, the first evening was actually a bit of a mistake. Nobody actually would have shown up. However, what had happened was their local AA meeting got locked out of their room. So they came walking over, and all 25 people came and danced with us that night. And that was how it all started. This was one of the first flyers that I made back in the days where you had to press things by hand. And you'll note that I put a P.O. box. I didn't dare give out my name, didn't dare give out my address. But there were a few people I was very close to in the dance community who recognized the number. One of them on the call to here tonight, Isabel Barton, and she and her husband, Dave Moosey, at the time, when they found out what I was doing, warmly embraced the idea and even said, we'll come and play for your community dance free of charge. That was a big eye-opening experience for me. Next. So the Jamaica Plain series started when most of the people that were coming to the Providence group were either from Hartford or from Boston. Very few people from Providence. And it was Kathy Ann Giannino who came with a group of her women friends and said, you know, you should start a group in Jamaica Plain. And I was like, what's Jamaica Plain? And they said, it's kind of a little gay enclave out in the outside of Boston, but this would be a great place to start this dance. So I went up, and eventually we started the series. The first dance had 12 folks. The dance was held every 2 weeks, and after the first dance, those 12 brought 12 more, and so on and so on. By the time January 1990 came, we had a little over 90 people attending the dance, and we had even talked about the possibility of moving the dance at one point because we had so many people. And then eventually, what happened at the same time is a number of other gay-related dance communities popped open. There seems to be something ripe in the air for expanding socially. There was Gays for Patsy, there was a swing dance, there were tango classes, and other groups that came about. Not sure if it was directly related to the work we were doing, but certainly there was a lot of things going on that were opening up opportunities for gay men and women to socialize together in very different ways rather than just being in the bars. We started off with recorded music and eventually went to a live band who I was invited to go see named Nantucket Sound. Linda Henry on piano, Bob Snope mandolin, and Amy Richardson. Many of you still know them as musicians today. They were an amazing group then. They're pretty amazing even now. Let's see. We changed our dance terminology very similar to what Carl did from gents and ladies to armbands and bear arms. That came about by me giving a call to a number of the Western square dancers that I had been involved with over the years. And I asked them, well, how did you deal with gender? Some people wore wigs, some people wore vests, some people had some very awkward ways of dealing with that. But then somebody mentioned a tie. And I thought, oh, a tie, an armband. Yes, that would be easy. You can take it on, take it off, change quickly. And eventually from that came the terminology armbands and bear arms. Later on that year, I had signed up to go to Pine Woods. I asked the community, would you like to have your own gay dance camp? And they all said yes. So from there, we got started with doing more work with that. We had a little bit of a riff in our community. Well, we've actually had many riffs here and there along the way. No dance community and no community or group of people, even people who really like each other, are free of challenges. And one of the first challenges we met was changing our community to an experienced only community because experienced dancers were getting bored. And my reaction to that was, well, if that's what you want, then you can count me out because you're going to cut off your lifeblood. So after a rather lively evening of debate, we decided on a compromise that the first half of our evening would be for newcomers and that the experienced dancers would help bring them along. And the reward for that is during the second half, we will have more experienced dancers. And if the new folks can't keep up, we'll certainly announce it, but it'll be much more for the experienced level. Over time, it's really kind of evened itself out. And now we have people dancing all night long with all different levels. Next. So our dance camps begin August 25th, 1989, and continued through 1991 at the Greenfield, New Hampshire location. These are some early photos from our first few camps. This is the callers and musicians. Upper left is Peter Barnes and Larry Unger. Lower left is Amy Richardson, now Amy Richardson Larkin, Marianne Taylor and myself, Cindy Green to the right of us. At the bottom center is Louise Brill. Upper right-hand corner is Bob Snope, Linda Henry, and then on the lower right-hand side is Rick McKinney. And yes, on the upper left-hand side, Peter Barnes has now become Kate Barnes. I think many of you know that. Next. And here are some of the dancers and some of the staff that were a part of it. You can see on the lower left, Louise Brill leading some folk dancing. The upper center is the people that attended our second winter camp. Lower right corner is Marianne Taylor leading some folk dancing. Upper right corner is is, let's see, Ed Connolly, and he led some wonderful sessions on Appalachian folk dancing. Next. So in the winter of 1992, we moved our camp to Beckett, where we're still dancing today. These are some of the photographs of our early dancing in that location. This offered us a larger dance floor, a large eating hall, great places to do workshops. It was a great move, and it allowed us through the 90s and into the millennium to really expand our dance community in a way that the old dance hall that we were using didn't allow. Next. Yes, dance camp was a weekend thing. It ran from Friday evening until Monday late morning after breakfast. And over the years, of course, needs change, things change, and it now runs from Friday afternoon through Sunday midday. Occasionally we'll host something special, but for the most part, that's it. This is some of our early variety show photographs from dance camp. Next. So there are some celebrations and important milestones that we've had in the LCFD community. The first one was our first gender-free session at NEFA in April of 1990, which was a big connection. I mean, it was a big deal for us because pretty much our dance communities had been separate. When the idea of this was floated by me to the NEFA community, there was a lot of controversy around that. They basically said, well, is it appropriate? Can we have that? Is it something that we can support? And when they brought it to Larry, when they brought this to Larry Jennings, who was running NEFA at the time, he said, I feel it would be inappropriate not to have it as a venue for NEFA. So they had it, and it became, it was wildly popular. However, as the years went on, there was a backlash for the first few years after that. The most notable one was that most of the straight men who were dancing at NEFA who had worn skirts didn't wear them the following couple of years. And over time, when they realized that putting on a skirt did not necessarily dictate your orientation, eventually that went by the wayside. And gender-free dancing over time, even after much debate, became a part of NEFA and is now still a part of NEFA. NEFA is the New England Folk Festival Association. In the early 90s, we started having not only just gays and lesbians, but we also had bisexuals coming to our dance. We had a number of discussions with people who were bisexual and trans over the years. And over those years, we also had to work with expanding the diversity of our community. And that is not an easy job, and it is filled with challenges. However, when it's possible for everyone to come together and really increase that wonderful diversity, it really builds a much stronger community. In '94, Doris Reisig had a dance party, and similar to what Reed mentioned earlier, crashing dances, we all as a group decided to go out to the English country dance in Cambridge, and we crashed it. And they thought it was an amazing group of people. Some of them came up to me and asked, well, where did all these dancers come from? And I said, well, we're from Jamaica Plain. And of course, most everybody in Boston by that point knew who Jamaica Plain, what the Jamaica Plain dance was about, but wouldn't dare go and visit. And they just kind of gave me this look of like, huh, you should bring them more often. At the same time, there was a woman who picked up one of our flyers, looked over some of the work that we were doing, and her response at that point was, well, why bother? It was not an easy transition. Over the years, myself, Laura Johannes, and other folks started inviting our straight friends from the dance community and started building bridges. But it takes time in any community to take it from where it was to bring it to something new. In '97, we had the Gay Blades that was founded by Dean Alamang, Graham Christian. Dave, do you want to say a little something about that?
Very little. It's a different traditional dance form, but it's often associated with Morris dancing, contra dancing. the first time I saw it, I always wanted to do it. And when I got an opportunity to do it in a gay context, it was like a dream come true. Dean and Graham were great teachers, and we were able to be an active part of that particular dance community for about a decade. So it was a super thing to be part of.
And in 2000, as a group, we all went to England and we toured and danced, and it was a really amazing experience. We have the Boston Uncommons. That was our LGBT Western Square Dance Club that began around 2002. Also that same year, the NEFA Food Booth, which still is a part of our fundraising today. At our 20th anniversary party in JP, we had over 120 dancers that attended. We invited everyone from every dance community, both gay and straight, across Boston. They came, we all danced together. It was a pretty amazing time. It was also right around that time that young trans dancers started coming to our community, participating and wanting to be more a part and taking more of an active role in our community. And from that, over time, our name changed from the Jamaica Plain Lesbian and Gay Country Dancers to its name today, Boston Gender-Free Contra Dancers. We had the LCFD 25th anniversary project, anniversary camp and video project, the video that we ran a little bit earlier. In 2016, armbands and barons changed to locks and ravens as our gender terminology. Myself and Linda Leslie introed that to dance camp in 2017. We had the locks and ravens discussion in April 2019, and now we've just recently done the adopting for locks and robins in the community. Next. So LCFD, where did the name come from? That came from a bunch of us coming together and deciding what did we want to call ourselves. At one point, we had even floated the idea of the Lavender Gypsies, and then we found out later that really wouldn't be culturally appropriate. So we decided to become Lavender because lavender is the color of gay pride and other things. It's kind of very neutral. And it really represented a lot of who we were. So some important questions: role terminology in our community, and why has it been so important to our community? All of these questions we could spend hours on discussing. I'm just going to give you my briefs so that we can get to the question and answer. Terminology is a really important thing. And the important thing about terminology is that in changing it, and what we did, what Carl did, and what other communities have done, is that it allows us to embrace something that may not have come from our community, but allows us to own it in a way that really works for us. I've heard the argument floated, well, you can come to our community and we call gents and ladies, but it doesn't matter. And my response to that has always been, well, if it doesn't matter, why are you still doing it? What impact have we made in the conventional dance community? Well, if nothing else, we've certainly have built bridges. However, the young folks of today have taken a lot of the work that we've done, maybe directly, maybe indirectly, maybe not at all, just needing something different, and maybe have seen some of the work that we've done and said, we want this in our own community dances. And it is something that's still growing today. And I know that a lot of young dancers are really taking the idea of what dancing could be for them and changing it. Just like in every generation, dancing is an ongoing and changing thing. If it doesn't change, it's doomed to die. Every generation that dances bring their own needs, and society has changed dancing over time. Had it not, English country dancing would never have become eventually the Americanized version of early American dancing and then contra dancing. We have a lot of challenges that we continue to face in our community. Certainly trying to be inclusive, trying to be warm and welcoming. What does that mean to young dancers versus dancers who have been with us for a while? It's something we still question. It's something we still work with. We certainly don't have all the answers, but it's something that at least I want to see us, and I know a lot of people in our community want to see us strive to make our community as warm and welcoming and inclusive as possible. The future of our community is really in the hands of everyone who comes to our dance, and that's all of you. So let's open up the floor for some question and answers. We can go to the next slide.
I'd add about gender-free terminology that it's becoming really common. I think the sense I have is that most newly formed dances, there aren't a lot of those, but most of them are using gender-free terminology, and that quite a few established dances are moving to gender-free terminology.
In fact, one of the reasons we're adopting larks and robins is because the terminology has cycled back around through the broader dance community, the younger dance community. They chose robins as their term. Right, Chris?
That is correct. Alan Winston just made a notification that Flying Shoes in Belfast, Maine is changing to using gender-free terminology. And if you haven't been up to dance in their community, they are an amazing group of people. They've always been very welcoming and very warm. To me, it's really refreshing to hear that they're adopting this as well.
Chris, can you speak, or could someone speak to when the New York scene became an entity in that timeline?
It was around 94. There were a couple of folks from the Jamaica Plain dance community who moved to New York. Ben Foley and there was another gentleman, and they wanted to have dancing in New York. So I went down there, and we started our first dancing there, and eventually they became a part of our community.
94, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
Oh yeah, so I have a question from the chat for you. This is Joan. Tony asks, what, if any, plans do you have for starting up again? Do you have any programs or activities that you've been doing during COVID?
Boy, that's a really good question. If anybody on the JP board can speak to that, fine. I know that there are other groups that are doing things via Skyping or Zoom meetings as community events. I've been invited to do a community event for the Mystic Pie Dance in Connecticut in September, where we're going to be sharing some videotapes, sharing some musicians playing music, doing a quiz, and doing prizes online. Does anyone from the JP group know if there's anything that we're doing?
We have no plans at this point, but I think John and Robert have suggested that they'd like to try to get something going.
John Hawley, did you want to say something?
I also heard that the LCFD camp committee is making plans for virtual fall camp events now that that is no longer happening in person.
Wow, neat.
How's the organization doing with money?
Money is not a problem at this point.
Good.
Although I will share with you that money is always something that most dance communities need, even if we have enough in the coffers. At this point, we're not spending any, so it doesn't matter.
A bunch of years we started the Lavender Legacy Fund and did fundraising every year, and so we have a pretty good surplus.
All right, and for anyone who's been to the NEFA food booth, I will tell you that that is a huge part of our fundraising, raising upwards of $8,000 or more every year, that we, almost every cent of it, we put right back into the communities that need it most through a sweat equity plan. So if anybody is listening, and if they are an organizer of a dance community, highly recommend going to your local dance organizers if they're doing anything with a folk festival, and seeing about working with them and building bridges as a way of doing fundraising.
The Dance Flurry is planning on being virtual.
Excellent. Dee Michelle.
Yeah, there's also been a regular monthly dance out in Western Mass for several decades. Not much more I can say about that. I guess I just also want to explain to the people who are not dancers who are listening that the difference between JP and LCFD and all these acronyms, it can be sort of confusing. I think what the story is that LCFD is like an umbrella group, Lavender Country folk dancers,
Yes,
was
it
formed
is.
to sort of keep track of dance camp and and the separate local camps. So they're the web page for LCFD gives links to all the separate local dance. So LCFD itself is sort of like an abstract organization that doesn't directly put on dances. It sort of coordinates things. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, it is correct.
Well, except
Yeah, and one of the
LCFD
reasons
does
there's
the dance camp.
confusing, sorry,
Go ahead,
one
Reed.
of the reasons there's some confusion is that LCFD started as just JP and then branched out from there.
Right.
Well, no, it was a little bit different from that. It was, we had a lot of local dances, and eventually we actually had a committee meeting. There was dances going on in Hartford, in Albany, Jamaica Plain, and in Providence. And so on my own, I organized a group called N.E.G.A.L, which is the Southeast Gay and Lesbian Country Dancers. And it basically was just a networking tool to say, hey, here's our name, here are all the dances under the umbrella. But in July of 1989, before our first dance camp, we had a group of people that came together at the Moosup Valley Grange Hall in Foster, Rhode Island. And we had a board meeting that actually started LCFD. It was the forerunner of LCFD. We decided to change our name to N.E.G.A.L, which is the Northeast Gay and Lesbian Country Dancers. And that was where I got voted in by Peter Rivard as Queen Mum. And unbeknownst to me many years later, I find out I have the same birthday as she does, exactly 60 years apart. Just a coincidence. But anyways, that was the start of what eventually became LCFD and also the group that organized all of the dance camps that we have. JP and LCFD are two separate groups, but they do connect with and work with each other. LCFD is the umbrella group. Anybody else?
I had a question. I was wondering if there are any Lavender type Zoom dances going on now, and if people could put the names of those in the chat, because we haven't been able to find any. We've gone to regular Contra, regular English, regular Scottish, but we haven't seen any Lavender type dancers. Maybe we just haven't gone to the right links. And if you could kindly share them if they're ongoing now. Thank you.
I don't think we have any, and that's probably why I haven't seen it.
We've just started talking about possibly doing some in the fall. There haven't been any up to this point. Nothing, there's nothing scheduled.
And that applies to there's a gender-free English dance as well, and right. that possibly virtual English dance might also happen in the fall.
I would just wonder if there are any women out there who'd like to talk about what their experience has been. It's mostly been guys speaking up.
Yes.
I was wondering how people will be informed about those Lavender type Zoom dances. Will it go out in some sort of a general email to people who attend that? How will you reach out to people? Thank you.
This is Joan with the History Project. If anyone shares any links in the chat, I will send a follow-up email sometime tomorrow, and I'm happy to share links to other dances or organizations if folks want to share them as a list of resources. I'm not sure if there's a dance digest or anything out there that one of the dancers might want to mention.
We have a newsletter list that we send out, our LCFD announce list, and if there's anything that's going on, that's one of the first places we'll put it, and it'll also be updated on our website. But that's the best place to get some information. We're getting close to ending. We've got about 3 more minutes. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say or add, or something that is important to them as a part of this process? I mean, we could certainly spend hours talking about a lot of different topics related to dancing and community and organizing and being inclusive. I mean, this is just barely touching the surface of what makes a community a community. And I think that it's, you know, speak up, and if you have something you want to ask, you know, say something. And also, I also want to encourage the possibility of us doing more of these in the future, because one of the things I've realized just putting this together is that this is a great opportunity for us as a community. I mean, seeing all the wonderful faces here that I love dancing with, it's a really sad thing for me that I just can't reach out and touch and hug every one of you right now and give you a great big swing and just say how wonderful it is that we can all be together again. And I am so looking for that time. But until then, and I'm not a technophobe, but I much prefer doing things in person than trying to see people over cameras. I will say that seeing all of your wonderful faces tonight has really been very heartwarming. And I think that we should be doing more of these in different ways. And I really want to thank Joan for your work, and thank you so much for inviting us. I want to thank all of the folks in our community who came out to be a part of this. I just want to say it's been a real honor, real pleasure having been a part of this community for so many years. If there's anything that we've done collectively as a community that can motivate other communities to reach out, make dancing more inviting, make dancing more inclusive, break down the barriers that push us apart, I really want to encourage you to be thinking about this now, particularly with younger folks coming together, wanting to make dancing a home. We don't have all the answers in our community. I don't think any community has answers. But one of the things that we can provide is a resource of knowledge and experience and ideas. And every one of us in our community are able to reach out and talk with you. If you're interested in the idea of entertaining gender-free dancing, making dancing more inclusive to young folks, thinking about terminology, thinking about why it's important or why not, and the reasons why you make the decisions that you do around that. I mean, for me, dancing is going to be an ongoing part of my life till I can no longer walk, and even thereafter. I see dancing as a way of bringing so many different people together from all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds, from all different sexual orientations, religions, skin color, gender identification. It's all there as a mechanism for us to be able to come together and build a really neat community. But it comes with a lot of work.
So I agree, and I'd like to thank you all very, very much for putting this on. My husband and I have another issue. We are both immune compromised. We have alpha antitrypsinogen deficiency with blood clots and cardiac, so we won't be able to go out and dance together and hug you people, really, no matter how you distance your events, whether you have them outdoors. So we wonder if there are other people who are in our circumstance and would be very pro Zoom dances and would be glad to help organize them, but we need people to, we don't have a Zoom Pro account or whatever, but we'd like to embrace people who need to be Zooming their dances. I mean, I've heard a lot of talk about the embrace of the community, including all other people, the history, but I haven't heard a lot about what we can do now to embrace everyone. Thank you.
So Deirdre, we welcome ideas for what would happen during those Zoom meetings. Is it just music, or is it something else that we can do? So don't say it now, but just think about what you want and send them to me or somebody on the committee.
There are
okay?
many Zoom dances, English.
So yeah, send the
Irish,
ideas about
Scottish,
what would happen during a Zoom dance, and we'd love to hear it.
Sometimes they have special modifications. They have wonderful callers who are modifying dances. It's magical what's happening. I'm sure the people in our community can come up with something just as wonderful for everyone. Thank you, Bob.
I agree. Thank you, Deidre.
Yeah, and thank you all so much. I'm going to, it's 9:02. So I'm turning into a pumpkin. It's past my bedtime. So I just want to say thank you all so much for being here. Chris, thank you again for this presentation, and to all of our speakers and comments. The History Project, like I said, we are community archives. We are here to document your history. So if you liked this talk and you have ideas for more talks, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to highlight all parts of our community. So with that, yeah, thank you all. I dropped some links in the chat. You'll get an email from me tomorrow, likely. And I hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us tonight. Love you all. Please, let's hope that we can dance again soon. I so miss you all. Thank you. Mwah.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.